Hey, welcome to The Explainer. We spend our entire lives talking, but most of what we're actually communicating happens completely under the surface. It's this whole other language that we're never really taught how to speak, or more importantly, how to read. So today, we're going to decode that unspoken conversation, drawing on what intelligence pros and behavioral experts know about what people are really saying. Just let that sink in for a second. Right this very moment, there are tiny movements you don't even notice, pauses you don't control, little reactions you think you're hiding, and they're all broadcasting information. Now, to most people, it's just background noise. But to a trained observer, it's a constant flowing stream of data. And this isn't some kind of psychic intuition, it's just systematic observation. So, where does a professional observer even begin? Well, it's probably not where you'd think. They don't start out looking for lies or trying to catch someone in a trap. No, the first step, and this is absolutely the most crucial one, is way quieter. It's about finding what intelligence agents call the baseline. What's their normal? That is the only question that matters at first. When they're totally comfortable, not feeling any stress, how do they talk? What's their posture like? Do they make a ton of eye contact, or do they kind of look away? This pattern, that's their unique behavioral signature. And look, if you don't know what's normal for someone, you have zero chance of spotting what's abnormal. And this is where you really see the power of contrast. Okay, so if you're talking to someone who almost never makes eye contact, and then suddenly they're staring you down with this intense gaze, boom, that's a signal. Or if a fast talker all of a sudden slows way, way down, that's a signal too. It's not the behavior itself that's the big deal, it's the deviation from their baseline. That's the exact moment you know something inside their head just shifted. So here's the bottom line. You have to forget all those myths you've heard, like liars always look away, or if they cross their arms, they're closed off. It's just not that simple. A behavior only has meaning within the context of that person's unique baseline. Professionals don't hunt for one single tell. They look for a whole cluster of shifts that breaks the natural pattern. Why? Because those shifts are what happen when the brain is under pressure. All right, let's get to the part everybody wants to know about: how to spot a lie. It is fascinating stuff, but we really have to go into this with a healthy dose of reality. Most of us, we kind of think we're pretty good human lie detectors, but the research tells a very, very different story. 54%, that's it. That's the average person's accuracy when trying to figure out if someone is lying. I mean, let that sink in. You would be almost as successful just by flipping a coin. So the first step to getting better at this is just admitting that we're probably not as good as we think we are. And it's always a good idea to give people the benefit of the doubt. This right here is the mindset you need. There is no single guaranteed sign that someone's lying. No Pinocchio's nose that grows every time. You want to think of these behaviors not as proof, but as red flags. They're basically just invitations to get curious, to dig a little deeper, and to ask more questions. They're a signal that just says, hey, pay a little more attention right now. So what are we looking for? Well, here are 4 pretty common red flags that researchers have identified. First, the question inflection. That's when someone states a fact, but their voice goes up at the end, like it's a question. That's your cue. Second, a sudden volume drop. Anxiety can literally take our breath away. Third is the incongruent nod, when the body says no, but the mouth says yes. And this last one, this one is fascinating, the disgust signal. Liars often feel kind of dirty about the lie itself, and they can flash this tiny, quick expression of disgust at themselves without even knowing it. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about observing other people, but what about ourselves? What about projecting confidence and authority? This is where our whole conversation takes a really interesting turn, away from the signals we see in others and toward the powerful, totally unfakeable truth that we broadcast from within. I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? If you learn all the tricks, make strong eye contact, stand up straight, use those power poses, can you really fool everyone into thinking you're confident, even when you feel like a total imposter on the inside? Can you fake it till you make it? The short answer is a hard no, not a chance. And the reason why is actually pretty profound. See, you might be able to control the big, obvious signals, your posture, your gestures, but you can't control the thousands of tiny, involuntary micro-expressions that are constantly leaking your true internal state. If you don't genuinely, deep down, believe in your own value, that feeling of unworthiness, it's going to find a way out. So what's the real answer then? Well, former Secret Service agent Evie Pamporas calls it sovereignty. It's not about faking anything, it's about a deep, internal shift where your own self-worth is just no longer up for debate. And when you finally get to that state, something pretty incredible starts to happen. Sovereignty is that moment you stop chasing people, when you stop looking for approval from the outside, and you stop caring so much about everyone else's opinion. You just trust yourself. And when that internal foundation is rock solid, all that confident body language, the eye contact, the posture, the presence, it all just develops naturally. It becomes a real, authentic expression of who you are, not just some performance you're putting on. Okay, so let's bring all of this together. We've looked at baselines, deviations, these little red flags, and the power of our own internal state. But what's the ultimate point of learning all this stuff? Well, it's probably not what you think. The real value in learning to read all these unspoken signals isn't about getting one up on people or trying to manipulate situations. The true goal is clarity. The more clearly you can see what's actually going on in a conversation, the less you're going to be influenced by confusion or misunderstanding. It gives you control, not over other people, but over your own decisions and reactions. And this right here, this is your roadmap. It's a path from just noise to a clear signal. You start by just observing what's normal for that person. Then you note the meaningful shifts. And you use those moments not to accuse them, but to ask questions, to try and understand. And finally, you arrive at clarity. You see the interaction for what it actually is, and that frees you up to think for yourself. So I'll leave you with this question. The very next time you're talking with someone, don't just listen to their words. What are you going to watch for? Pay attention to the shifts in their tone, the little pauses, the gestures. Because trust me, those details are never random. They are signals. And once you start to recognize them, you don't just hear people anymore. You actually begin to understand them.